So we shall begin the session now.
Sure.
A very good afternoon to everyone present here. I'm Prerna Kala, the student coordinator at Law Internships and the moderator for today's interactive session organized by Law Internships. Law internships provide internship opportunities in the field of law, primarily to the students pursuing undergraduate or postgraduate programs. Advocate Amrita Jain, partner at Law Internships, along with her team of young, dynamic, and competent members, assist in providing opportunities for gaining professional experience as well as improving legal skills while being enrolled in a full-time law program. The objective is to prepare students for the real world by imparting practical exposure and relevant skills through legal internships. Today we have amongst us Mr. Jayant Bhatt. Sir is an independent lawyer based out of New Delhi, India. He holds dual Masters of Law LLM from New York University, USA and National University of Singapore, and is a member of the prestigious Supreme Court Bar Council, Bar Association and Delhi High Court Bar Association. His office caters to various clients comprising of governmental and non-governmental bodies, multinationals, financial institutions, and individuals in an array of matters. Sir, besides being a practicing advocate, is also a prolific speaker at various platforms and is an individual with firm belief in greater societal good. He regularly features in news articles and columns and is a writer and a thought leader. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us, sir. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so before we begin the session, I would like to give few instructions. If anyone has any queries or questions, you can raise your hand and we shall recognize you and unmute you, or you can paste your query in the chat box. In the end, the floor shall be open for questions. So without delaying any further, let's begin with the session for today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, Law Internships, for giving me this opportunity. Especially on a Saturday evening, I know people are busy, and they have their own plans for the evening. But having said that, it's a very interesting topic and very pertinent topic, especially considering today's age and time. So the topic for the day is media trial versus fair trial and what demarcates the two. I'll not highlight the cases which are in the media currently. Let me first quickly give a wrap up of what a trial is all about under criminal law and criminal procedure in the country, and what ideally should be the role of media. And once I have, I think, discussed and touched upon those facets, then I'll also then briefly talk about what is going on in media trial and whether the act of media, due to their conduct, affects the actual trial or the trial as fairly it should be conducted in a court of law. So in the Indian scenario, the basic rule of criminal jurisprudence is that a person has to be presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. That's the basic benchmark and the thumb rule of a criminal trial system and the criminal jurisprudence, which has evolved over a number of years. Once we conduct criminal trials, a trial is basically structured into three phases, broadly speaking. The first phase is when a FIR or a first information report is filed. And once that FIR is filed, then based on that FIR, the police team or a particular team which has been handed over the duty of the investigation for that particular matter starts investigating a case. Based on their investigation, they prepare something which is called a charge sheet, which is defined under section 173 of CRPC. Once that charge sheet is prepared and filed, it is put before the concerned court. And once the concerned court, whether it's a magistrate court or a sessions court, depending if it's a magistrate trial or sessions trial, take cognizance of the charge sheet. And once they have taken the cognizance of the charge sheet, thereafter the process of the trial commences. So before the trial, there is a stage called framing of charges, in which a person who has been accused of a particular crime is given an opportunity to perhaps at times argue for discharge, which in a way tantamount to acquittal or getting scot-free if they think, or if in the court's opinion it transpires that in filing of the charge sheet, these charges are not meted out in a particular case. But if the charges are framed, then the second stage, the main stage where that criminal trial commences. In criminal trial, you have the prosecutor, you have the defense team, and you have the judge presiding over a particular matter who oversees the complete trial. And there are very basic steps of trial, just to give you a broad overview. Prosecution has its own set of witnesses which are enlisted in the charge sheet. So first of all, a prosecution witness is called for examination in chief, and the defense team cross-examines them, and if there is a need by the prosecution again, then they can be re-examined. So there is examination in chief, there is cross-examination, and there is re-examination. Thereafter, you have section 313, which is basically the statement of accused under CRPC, whereby a mini defense, it's also called a mini defense by the accused, an opportunity is granted to either one accused or multiple accused in a particular matter to say their side of the story, where a question and answer series sort of is prepared by the prosecutor, and these questions are then put to the accused demanding any clarification. Thereafter, the accused is also under complete liberty and has a legal right to lead defense evidence. In defense evidence, there is a role reversal. If an accused is presenting its own set of witnesses in the defense evidence, then the defense team will conduct examination in chief, and that will be followed by cross-examination by the prosecution team. And if the need be for any further clarification, re-examination by the defense team. So this is basically the crux of how a trial is conducted in a court of law. And then after the trial and these question and answer series is complete, then you are faced with the final arguments, after which a court has to decide whether this case, based on the filing of the charge sheet, based on how the trial was conducted, should a person be acquitted or convicted. So, simply put, this is the whole procedure for a fair trial. In a fair trial, an accused has all the rights sometimes, to agitate if they think a particular document has not been filed, if the investigation has not been done properly, then they can always file something we call a protest petition, which though is not defined or finds place in definitions under CRPC, but is a creature of custom and constitution for a fair trial in this country. And you can always file protest petitions after normally when a charge sheet is filed, and you can claim that the police has not fairly investigated a matter, a particular document or a series of documents was left out, or any crucial information that you think the police or the investigating agency ought have to found, then you can put this particular application in place. There are also times when after investigation, it may so transpire to the investigating agencies that there are multiple and more accused involved. So in that case, they file something we call a supplementary charge sheet, making more people as co-accused in a particular given case which is facing the trial. Now we have all type of trials. We have summary trials. We have trials in heinous crimes, trials in money laundering or big economic offences. But the procedure by and large is governed by Code of Criminal Procedure or CRPC, as we already called, and then the whole process of trial is also overseen by CRPC and Indian Evidence Act put together. The basic allegations which are leveled can be under any penal code in the country. It can be Indian Penal Code, it can be POCSO, it can be NDPS, so it can be Immoral Trafficking Act. So depending what type of crime or what is the nature of the crime which has been committed, accordingly charges are framed against a person. And when I say charges, I mean these sections which are then put in a particular FIR, which then culminate later into a charge sheet, and all these things take place. Now, what also happens normally in a fair trial in a given scenario is while the police is investigating a matter, they have to look at a lot of facets. They have to have collect evidences, then they have to put those evidences for scrutiny. If let's say it's a case of murder, or if it's a case of bodily injury to a human being, then they have to collect the fingerprint samples, the blood samples, the splatter analysis, so on and so forth, and then send it to the forensic labs for scrutiny and speculation, and then they have to await the report from the FSL labs. Unlike the media trial, which go on the completely different tangent altogether. And then you have seizure memo, arrest memo, where you have to document at what time a particular person was arrested. Upon the arrest, what was found on the body of the person. When you search somebody, for example, let's say if a person is arrested and they are carrying a pen or a wallet or a watch, all those things are then seized by the police, and they prepare something called a seizure memo. So these things are a part of a fair trial, and these are all reflected in the charge sheet which is filed before a particular court. So this is what is mandated by the law, and all these things have to happen. Now let's come to media trial. What happens in a media trial? As opposed to this fair trial where I'm trying to explain you the procedure and the process and the due process of law which is followed by the courts, and if there is any falling off the line or any anomaly in a fair trial, one is always free to appeal it either to a higher court. If it's a magistrate trial, then go to a sessions court. If there's a higher platform like high court should need to be agitated, then they can go to higher court and eventually to the Supreme Court should the need be. But in a media trial, you don't have these procedures, because in a media trial, the media house or the social media platforms which are conducting the media trials, so as to say, are their own judge, jury, accused, victim, police, investigation. They are all in one. So you do not know what is going on. You do not know what is the source of their information. We do not know who is leaking what information to them. Why are they relaying this information without any credible information? So the basic information they have with them, for example, let me start taking the most highlighted media case right now, which is Mr. Sushant Singh Rajput's death case. Now, I don't know anybody knows for certain whether it was a case of suicide or if it was a case of murder. But the way media trial has panned out, you have a victim who is an ex-girlfriend, and people have their own bent of mind towards Riya Chakravarti. Now a drug racket has come into place where the Narcotics Control Bureau has also chipped in. And I think today morning when I read the newspaper, her brother and I think Sushant Singh's manager have been arrested in a case. When this case started out, the Bombay police were only doing an investigation but had not lodged the FIR. Then came the new twist in the matter where Bihar police had lodged the FIR based on the complaint of the parents. And when they went to Bombay police, the media reported that the Bombay police or the Maharashtra police is not giving them enough help. Then, based on this FIR, which was lodged by the Bihar police, a request was put for giving the investigation to CBI. And then, eventually, when the Supreme Court got apprised of the matter and taking the clarity of the fact, they said, "Okay, we'll hand over the investigation to the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, as we popularly call them." And I think there the media should have drawn a line after creating such a huge ruckus and media circus. But even I think after that, every day, either in print media or in social media or in news channels, I keep seeing that this hasn't died down, because I think certain faction of the society have made it their agenda to ensure that a media trial overtakes or overpowers or overcharges the actual trial or an actual judicial trial or a fair trial that ought to happen in this country. I think so much so that if I'm not wrong, somebody forwarded it to me. I've not personally checked the CBI website, but the CBI website also said that they are not giving any formal information to the media for the investigation which is currently being undertaken by their team. And any such information has to be vetted by the CBI team. They have a proper spokesperson, they have proper channels through which a credible information would be released to the media houses. So I think this is something that somebody forwarded me. You can check it out on the CBI's website if it's actually there. But this was, the mandate from the CBI's office. So I think as recent as yesterday. The other thing is, when you are listening to news from media houses, it tends to hamper the actual thinking capacity of a common person or a civilian who is not, adept to the legality or to the nuances of trial courts or how the law works or how the judicial system of this country works. And that's why before I started on the media trial aspect of today's topic, I gave you this overview of the actual trial and how it happens. Because normally people don't come to court till the time, they are in some problem or FIR has been lodged against them, or they are fighting some civil suit with their family members, or, are, stuck in some commercial litigation, etc., etc. But what one needs to realize is they have to put their utmost trust in the judiciary of this country. There are no two ways about it. The moment you think that what you are seeing on television, what you're watching on WhatsApp, what you're watching on any social media platform is the truth, I'm sure that there are enough reasons for you to be misguided. The simple reason is because most of the information that we receive on WhatsApp or on any platform is not a vetted information. We do not know whether somebody has tampered with the evidence. We do not know whether out of any propaganda or any agenda these informations are being forwarded just because somebody is getting kicks out of it. We do not know what is the actual judicial veracity of this information. So as I said, in a proper investigation, in a proper trial, you have a seizure memo, you have a search memo, you have warrants, you have charge sheets, you have so many judicial compliances. In media trial, none of these compliances are there. All they have is a media spokesperson or a media host or a channel or an anchor with a panel of their choice of 4 people, 8 people, 10 people, 20 people. I don't know. They have made it a complete zoo these days. But then everybody is shouting at each other. People are trying to put and buttress their point on the thinking of somebody else. There is no proper judicial discussion about it. I don't know the number of lawyers who are participating in this, but if there are sensible lawyers who are in a panel, then they should rightly put, that once a matter is sub judice, the media should report it responsibly and sensibly, and that is what is important. If even as a lawyer, if you are coming to the all these TV debates or TV shows, I think it's your duty as an officer of the court that no misinformation is given to the public at large, and I think that is crucial. You cannot have your own propaganda or agenda or your theories till the time the trial is pending, because if we are not, like for example, I'm pursuing, I do not know what actually is the information which has been collected in this, and as a criminal lawyer, as a practicing criminal lawyer, I do not ascribe to the theories or multiple theories which a media house has to throw. Am I doubting their credibility? Absolutely not. There have been good cases in India in which have been backed by good media information in the past, because of which we have some victims have also received justice. But there have been equally irresponsible and ill-behaved media houses and media news coverages which have resulted in the false conviction or a false harassment of a lot of people. To give you some example, I think there was the famous Arushi murder case, in which both the parents spent number of years languishing behind bars, and I think finally they were acquitted by one of the constitutional courts in the country. So imagine the harassment that they were meted out by the media houses. On the contrary, then there was another media trial on the Nithari case where a lot of skeletons were found, and then I think this Pandhar or his servants were also taken into custody. And I think the media doggedly followed it, and I think eventually the servant was convicted in this particular case. Then you had the Jessica Lal case, in which media had responsibly, reported the news coverage as to what had gone on, and I think it eventually resulted in the conviction of Manu Sharma back then. And I think I was in school or law school when this case had happened. But today, compared to these cases, when they were eventually used to be reported in media houses back then, and the cases which are reported today, there is a sea change of difference, because today there are so many news channels and everybody is fighting for their TRPs. Everybody is fighting for an airtime coverage, for different coverages. So rather than focusing on other important news in the country or other trials which are ongoing in different courts in the country, you are not covering them. You have made it your mandate. You have made it your agenda to only cover one news. And because of your own TRP policies and practices, you want to impress upon the people of this country that this is the only case which will make or break your life. Now, is this true? Absolutely not. There are so many cases which any court in this country decides on a particular day. Every judge is at least burdened with a 50 to 100 odd number of different litigations that they face on a day-to-day basis. So why is media hell-bent on only one case? I'm not saying don't cover it, but cover it responsibly. Cover it in tranches. You don't have to have a 24/7 primetime news channel covering on the death of a particular superstar or a film star. You have covered it enough. It is fresh in people's memory. Now at least let the court take its own course, and that is very important. The moment we say fair trial has to be judicially supervised. A judge is there. Process of law is there. Under the structure of law, courts have been created. They are the creature of law and justice. They have to, upon the filing of the investigation and upon the filing of the charge sheet, they have to take cognizance of a matter. They have to apprise themselves, and then the legal team which has been employed either by Rhea Chakravarti or by Sushant Singh's parents can look into it. As a third party person or as a media person, one must be responsible to do these things properly. Now, other case that I must highlight to your good self is that Kanhaiya Kumar matter which happened in JNU a few years ago. And what had happened, and I'll tell you, because one of my office colleague and a very dear friend was in Patiala House when Kanhaiya Kumar was being produced. And there was so much of ruckus in the court, and a lot of lawyers had gathered. And I was also told that even people who were not lawyers had just put on a black coat and a blazer and had put gown and a bat or something. And then when Kanhaiya Kumar was being produced in the court by the police, there were chants. And then some of the so-called lawyers, so as to say, I don't know if they were actual lawyers or they were just having a black coat on them, they started thrashing Kanhaiya Kumar because of so much of media hatred which was created against him. Now, in the absence of a proper trial, in the wake when a proper court is sitting and deciding a matter, if you take law into your own hand, especially in a court premises where lawyers are coming and thrashing a person based on certain media reports, based on certain TRP ratings, based on how you are ensuring that hatred permeates through the society, I think it's a wrong approach. And I think a few days ago in Sushant Singh Rajput case, there was an interview by Ms. Rhea Chakravarti. I didn't see it, but I was told there was a 1-hour interview by some other media house channel. And she also expressed her fear and her concern that a lot of people from media and other people from civil society, maybe some anti-social elements were also creating ruckus outside her society's gate, and there was a genuine threat to her family and to her family members. We have to pause here for a second, and we have to think and think: is it right on our part? Is it justified on our part to vilify somebody like this? Can we make a villain or a vamp out of somebody just because 10 media houses or 20 media houses are saying this, or even one media house is saying this? The idea is, an idea of any criminal fair trial is innocent until proven guilty. It cannot be the other way around. We cannot presume the guilt of a person till the time the trial has commenced. But I think courtesy media trial courts, what is happening in today's day and age is the notion has reversed. It is guilty until proven innocent, which I think is a very wrong way to go. Today, it's Riya Chakravarti or anybody else in a media trial. Tomorrow, it can be you and I or anybody, because the society which has not read law, which has not come to the court, which does not appreciate the nuances of trial law, which does not appreciate the finesse which goes in cross-examination or examination in chief, which does not appreciate the jurisprudence laid down by different courts in this country over a number of years, will never be able to understand the necessity and the need on which a trial or a fair trial is conducted in this country. And I think this is a high time where good legal education needs to be imparted, not through just social media or media channels, but also through school and colleges. And by school and colleges, I don't mean law schools. I mean institutions which are not law schools. And even in primary and secondary school, basic legal education should be imparted, which must enable a person as to how the court system of these countries operate. What is the basic premise of the court system or of a trial? For example, if a child studies history, civics, political science, they have a basic idea of how parliament works, who is a president, who is a prime minister. On a similar pedestal, we must also educate our children and the young students and the youth of this country as to how the court works, how the court system is, what is the concept of a fair trial, and why we should not unnecessarily target a particular person and make their life miserable. Because, since time immemorial, this has been the mandate and this has been the nature of society, that the moment we think of pinning our blame on somebody without even giving them a fair trial or a fair recourse to justice system, we tend to already hold them guilty. This is not the right way to go. There's a court system. Media cannot have a parallel court system to the existing court system. If they were so powerful, then people would not be taking stay orders against them or a gag order on media houses, which also happens in certain cases where people say that there's a loss of reputation or there are defamatory causes on that. But again, that is a call for different legal teams and lawyers who are representing these people. But at the same time, it's also my appeal to the audience here and to the youth in general, and to anybody who is tuned on to this session today, that please be responsible. Please honor the mandate of the Constitution, which has created the courts in this country. Please honor the mandate of the law under which we conduct a fair trial. You have every right in the law. As I said, you can have protest petitions, you can have appeals, you have different recourses under the CRPC and even other laws where you can raise a point if you think the police is not doing their job up to the mark, if the investigation is being compromised, if you need to change the investigation or investigating officer, etc., etc. There are checks and balances within the law. And that is something I think that is very important and crucial for us to bring out to the people at large. But these type of debates need to take place. And in the absence of these debates, in the vacuum which has been created by media on purpose to not educate people and to ill-educate them, I think we are seeing the pitfalls of this country. I think having said that, I'll pause myself here and I'll request Law Internship to please open the platform and the forum to the audience here so that we can engage in some good interactive session and question and answers. And I'll try my best to answer those questions.
Sure, sir. So the participants, the floor is open for questions now. So you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can write your question on the chat box. So there's one question from Sajal Khare. Whether media trial is started, he wants to know that media trial is basically started after the Nanavati case.
Look, there is no particular case by which you can say only Nanavati case was the first media trial. What is media? Media is not just TV media or print media. Media has always been there in the form of journalism or responsible journalism, I would rather say. Because even in the time of Britishers, when our freedom fighters were, whether it be Gandhiji or Bhagat Singh, even when they were there, it was openly reported in the print media even back then when there was no television. So I would not say Nanavati is the first case, but yes, because of Nanavati's case, the thing which happened in this country is we got away with the system of jury trials. Till the Nanavati case, we had a proper system of jury trial like in UK and US, but right now we don't have a jury trial. And personally speaking, I think jury trial is a much fairer system where the people from the civil society, people from society in general can participate as jury members, and they can also learn about the court system. I think that should have been also made an integral part of India. I think it should not have been done away with, because then people understand how a court works. They also get to participate, and then there are whole, especially when you see UK and US courts, how they operate for the trial court. They have jury system there in both countries. I think it's a much better system because compared to the judge system only where we conduct the trial today, the judge is already burdened with a lot of matters, as I just said. They have about 50 to 100 odd matters a day to deal with. If you have the jury system, then for every trial you can have different juries. And with the population of 1 billion people in India and larger chunk of population being educated today, we can include these people, as a jury members, and it will, I think, show the right path to this country when jury is involved.
Right. So Lalit has raised his hand. So Lalit, you can ask your questions. Hello. Yes, Lalit, please try speaking. Hello. All right. So meanwhile, we'll take the question from Divya Jain. There are lakhs of trials pending at the court since years. Doesn't the delay in court trial causes media or social media trial?
Madam, there are two things. Let me answer this in two parts. Yes, you are right. There are lakhs of cases which are pending across the country. But that is not because the court doesn't want to work. That is because the lack of judicial and administrative infrastructure, because of lack of finances. And these finances have to be supplemented by the government, either the state government or the central government. So if they fund the judiciary properly, if we have better infrastructure, if we have more number of courtrooms and judges, this problem can be easily dealt away with. And this was also something which was raised by erstwhile Chief Justice of India, Justice Thakur, in Vigyan Bhavan a few years ago, when he also broke down, and there were tears in his eyes, saying that it's easy to blame judiciary, but you don't give us enough funding. And that's what he appealed to the government of the day, that please fund us. The people implicitly trust the courts of this country. That's their last resort where they come for justice. So please fund us so that we can have good number of judges, good number of courtrooms where fair trials and fair judicial process can be conducted. That is number one. Number two, when you say just because cases are pending in the country, media trial is necessary, I would say no, because a media trial cannot give you a verdict of convict or acquittal. Imagine this: if today you are watching either Times, Aaj Tak, or Republic TV, or whatever channel there is out there, do you think just because Justice Arnab Goswami is going to give you a verdict, that person can be sent to Tihar jail or CBI can arrest them? No, they can't do it, because as I said, there is a proper procedure of law for every institution in this country, whether it be an investigating agency like CBI or the state police, or whether it be a trial court or an appellate court, everything is governed by law. So today, just because Republic TV or India Today TV or Aaj Tak or whatever news channel is out there goes on to say that, look, we find this person guilty, you answer us, please. Who they are trying to create a circus out of the people, and for the lack of better word, I would say, who lack good judgment. Who have idle time in their hands, are sitting before the television. They say, yes, what this journalist is saying is right. But why is that journalist not collating all this evidence in a piece of paper with a proper evidentiary proof and then giving it to the police or to the CBI and say, look, we are trying to help you. We have collected this credible evidence. This may be helpful to you in a trial. So maybe we can come up with some sort of new jurisprudence where we can say media trial was conducted, and through some media reports, credible evidences was collated, and now they're helping the investigating agency in a form of a public interest, not litigation, but in form of public interest. Those things are not done. So even a conviction under media trial is, madam, no conviction. Please understand this. A conviction only by a court of law is called a conviction, or an acquittal by a court of law is called an acquittal. And those things are, very, very different. There are two parallels. Media is as they keep telling themselves, they're the fourth pillar of democracy. But sometimes I think they're not the fourth pillar of democracy. They are trying to, be vindictive in a democracy. You cannot have media channels being driven by their own propagandas or agendas. Any media house, any responsible journalist, just like a responsible lawyer who is conducting a case, has to put the facts in the most neutral fashion possible before the audience. When I am arguing a case, it is my duty, even if something is against my client, to put it in the most neutral manner and not hide facts from the court. Courts appreciate this when you're forthcoming to a court, when you put a particular case before a court, because it's your duty as an officer of the court. Similarly, I think every journalist has a duty to also be responsible and put the right image and put the right picture. You cannot, as I said, you cannot make an agenda-driven channels or programs by which you will only target one person alone. It started with suicide, then the case tends to be a murder case, then you're arresting an ex-girlfriend, then now her brother is arrested on in a drug matter. So if it was a drug matter, was NCB sleeping so far? Do they don't know how the cartelization of drugs happens in this country? They are every state in this country has a narcotic bureau. Drugs are peddled left, right, and center. Trafficking of human beings takes place. How does the agencies don't know? And why are you focusing only on one case? Why are you not highlighting the case of every wrong thing which is happening in this country and highlighting it in the right manner? Is Riya Chakraborty the only person allegedly who is consuming drugs or who is giving drugs to her ex-boyfriend? Do other people not consume drugs in this country? So why are these reports not being highlighted? And that is my problem with media trial.
So Lalit, you may unmute now and ask your question. All right, so we'll take the question of Manasvi Verma. Can there be any legal action against any media channel by Supreme Court on interference in the investigation of CBI?
Madam, you cannot directly go to Supreme Court unless you think it's a matter of public interest litigation. I think in this case, because there was a reference to CBI and Supreme Court under Article 142 took upon itself that the investigation should be given because they thought some sort of public interest was involved. In their wisdom, they granted it. But I think a judgment has to come which should say that media has to be responsible, and there have been few cases. Let me discuss it with you. I'll give you the citations also. One case I can tell you is this Ankur Chandra Pradhan versus Union of India. This is 1996 6 SCC page 354. In this case, the Supreme Court had observed that no occasion should arise for an impression that the publicity attached to these matters has tended to dilute the emphasis on the essentials of a fair trial and the basic principles of jurisprudence, including the presumption of innocence of the accused unless found guilty at the end of the trial. Another case I think which the audience can read is MP Lohia versus State of West Bengal. The citation is 2005, 2 SCC, page 686. So this was a case where a woman had committed suicide in Calcutta in her parents' house. But then a case was filed against the husband, and the in-laws under the IPC saying that it was a case of dowry death. And the husband had finally appealed to the Supreme Court and had filed a number of documents to prove that the woman was schizophrenic and was a psychotic patient. And the parents of the women and then filed their documents to prove that the allegation of the demand of the dowry was made by the accused. Well, the trial in this case was yet to commence, and the Supreme Court, basically said that and there were certain articles in a Calcutta-based magazine which had only targeted the in-laws and had not presented a neutral story. So Supreme Court had said that the articles published by this publishing house, and they had cautioned the editor and the journalist, saying that you have to be responsible on what you write in your article, and you cannot indulge in such trials by media where the issue is sub judice. So this was categorically again observed by the Supreme Court. Then there is a case of Punjab High Court in Rao Hariharan versus Gomori Ram. The citation is All India Reporter, AIR 1958, Punjab, page 273, in which the court had observed that the liberty of the press is subordinate to the administration of justice. And the plain duty of a journalist is the reporting and not the adjudication of cases. So I think this is, again, very important. And last case that I would like to cite for the benefit of the audience is YV Hanumanta Rao versus KR Pattabhiram and another. The citation is All India Reporter, 1975, Andhra Pradesh, page number 30. Where the court had observed that when a litigation is pending before a court, no one shall comment on it in such a way that there is a real and substantial danger of prejudice to the trial of the action, as for the instance by influence on a judge, the witness, or by prejudicing mankind in general against the party to the cause. Even if the person is making the comment honestly believes it to be true, still it's a contempt of court if he or she is prejudicing the truth before it is ascertained in the proceeding. So, courts have time and again, and I have now given you a few judgments to also read. have time and again, emphasized that anything which is now sub judice, whether it be investigation or whether it be supervised by a particular court in this country, media houses should not interfere in them. Yes, please assist the court, please enable and assist the investigating agency, but do not step in the court of a judge, or a lawyer by making the mind of the people for them. Don't do that. Let people decide what they have to decide by giving a neutral picture, and that is very important.
Right, so moving ahead, the next question is from Nisha Yadav. Does the disclaimer provided by the news channels stating that their intention is not to hold anyone guilty but to bring facts into light remove them from the ambit of what we call the media trial?
No, I'll tell you why. The disclaimer cannot totally protect you in a court of law if by what you're submitting before the public at large is being defamatory or is being prejudicial to somebody. So for example, let me take Sushant Singh Rajput's case also. And I don't know what type of legal strategy Riya Chakravarti's team has devised. But I think ideally they could have also tried for some gag order or for some injunction against them. For example, in my post today on LinkedIn, I have talked about this Bad Boy Billionaire movie, which was to be aired on Netflix yesterday. But out of a good legal strategy or move, I would say by Subrata Roy and by Ramalinga Raju, they filed different injunction suits, one in Hyderabad and the other in an area called Araria in Bihar. It's again a small town. And two different trial courts have given them separate injunction order against Netflix because they said it was going to damage their reputation. So had Riya Chakravarti tried to do this by putting a gag order against media, that would have done. For example, a long time ago in the case of Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, where there was a CCTV footage which was, I think, made out by his driver, which in a compromising position, he had obtained a gag order against the media houses, saying that it is going to damage his reputation till the time a proper trial takes place. So in law, you have all the power, but you have to exercise it wisely. The media house, the moment they say, look, I'm giving you a disclaimer, but after giving you that disclaimer to the people, I'm going to defame you. I'm going to drag your reputation publicly and I'm going to malign you. That's not the right thing to do. Because look, any media house today is not mincing word. They are saying Riya Chakravarti. So they are saying her name out and out. They are naming her person. They are naming the people who are connected with Sushant Singh Rajput's life. So they have made everybody's personal life public without any remorse and without any respect for their privacy. So on one hand, we are agitating the cause that right of privacy should be respected. Constitution also mandates for it. And on the other hand, you are saying, look, we are giving you a disclaimer, but this disclaimer is only a disclaimer when it suits my need and when it doesn't suit your need. So that you cannot have a case of head I win and tail you lose. That doesn't happen. The media houses have this approach of either it's my way or the highway. And I'm sorry to say, this is not the right way to conduct your channels. This is not the right way to conduct your media house trials. If you are so intelligent, please come to the court and face the music someday and you'll realize how a trial happens. Maybe I think some of the people will face because now there are a few FIRs pending against some of them. So let's see how the course pans out.
All right, sir. So moving ahead, the next question is from Lalit. What if police do not file FIR even after compliance of 174 CRPC is done and advert reports come across in media? No statement is recorded of victim.
Sir, you always have a recourse of going to a magistrate court under 156(3) of CRPC and asking the particular concerned court to get a FIR lodged if you have a strong case. There are lots of times in this country when FIR is not lodged for reasons best known to police or police stations. But I, as a criminal lawyer, have filed so many 156(3) in my career, that any FIR is not outrightly reported. And, at least in rape matters now it is reported promptly because the Supreme Court came out with a verdict saying it's a heinous offense and crime against women should be taken seriously in this country. So any lady who goes to a police station and alleges that she has been raped, promptly FIR is registered, but not in all the cases. People still have to, sometimes go to the court under 156(3) and say this has to be done. So, and also no charge sheet can be filed without the lodge of an FIR, as the legal process.
So moving ahead, a question from Sajal. Can media facts and investigation be admitted in the court of law, as media can mold one perception of looking at a case?
So you are not going to the court immediately, but you can definitely give it to the investigating agency as a responsible person and say, look, please look at this, facts or evidence that I have found. And if they find it credible, then they can include it in the news report. but you have to then disclose your source, you have to disclose from where this information came, and then the police has to also decide whether it's credible, not credible. We have so, like for example, Section 65B of Evidence Act. If let's say you say I got this information from WhatsApp, now the source will have to be ascertained whether the source from which you received this information has manufactured something wrongly, or was it the right information which was relayed to a person. So that's why sometimes the phones are seized. The whole reverse engineering has to be done. They have to look at the focal point on how the information originated, how has this information disseminated from source A to B to C to D. So all those things have to be seen. Just because a particular news anchor says today, look, I have this paper and this says this, how can you trust them? That's the most basic of common sense. I mean, I'm sure that things happen in not many ways which meets the eye, and people have friends in good places and they can get some documents, but they have to be held answerable at an investigation which is pending. How is one media house so easily able to retrieve that information, to which even sometimes even a judge is not apprised of? So the judge does not have, who is supposed to oversee the trial, but all this information is now coming in public domain. And how is this coming? And in a matter of seconds, in a matter of hours, media is flashing that information on your face without even using the RTI. And RTI is the right way to go. If you file something under RTI Act, it takes at least minimum of 30 days for an application to be processed. So what magic wand is media having today that they're able to give you information instantly? Something is amiss somewhere. So media has to be regulated. You cannot have them run amok. The law which applies to a citizen of the country under RTI Act, or even laws in general, should also equally apply to journalists and media houses.
So moving ahead, a question from Riddhi Jindal. Are there any regulations which the media houses must abide by, or is there any regulatory framework for the media houses to function?
So they are covered under different acts. There are Telegraph Act, there are other Information Broadcasting Act. They fall under the ambit of Broadcasting Information Ministry. So I think they also issued a guideline in Sushant Singh Rajput's case, if I'm not wrong, which said that don't go all out and you have to collate your information, you have to verify that information. But the thing is, how do you control so many media houses? There are at least 50 to 70 odd English, Hindi and regional news channels. How do you control each and every one of them? But then I think perhaps Supreme Court or some High Court, suo motu needs to take this action sometime. That's saying that media house should not run amok. And the laws, I think the specific laws have to be laid down. As I said, how are they obtaining this information? That is very important. The source has to be ascertained.
Yes, participant 1191 can unmute and ask the question. Okay, so moving ahead, there's a question from Sajal again. Can trial by media be contempt of court? As for criminal contempt, media prejudice the trial and hinder the administration of justice.
Look, contempt has two broad criteria in this country under the Contempt of Court Act. One is a civil contempt, where you are willfully disobeying order and the court will take you to task for it. The other is a criminal contempt, which is again defined in the Act and which falls broadly into three categories, as we must have all seen in Mr. Prashant Bhushan's case. The first criteria is either are you scandalizing the image of the court or lowering the dignity of the court in any platform, as he did in Twitter by his tweets. The second and third criteria is by doing an act by which you are causing an impediment in the seamless functioning of the administration of justice or any judicial proceedings. Now, I don't think media, by doing all the acts that they do, have any power on the courts. One, they don't have any power on the court. You have to understand this. You may do whatever you want to do in your channel, make all the hullabaloo, make all the circus that you have to do, but the judge is not going to take that report on face value. It may impact their psyche, I'm not saying that, but the judge has to decide a trial based on a charge sheet and not on what a media house is doing. But yes, the moment a media house says, look, the courts in this country are not doing anything and we are the only one doing something, only then will you fall under the ambit of contempt. Because you are not otherwise trying to malign or sabotage the image of the court, and that has to be understood. So I think media is also very careful by saying they're free doing what they want to do, but they are not casting aspersions on the court, and that has to be understood.
So there's a question from anonymous attendee. Can Riha Chakrabarti sue these media channels if she found innocent for defaming her and thereby causing loss in her career?
Look, I don't know how her career is going to pan out because law is one thing and society is another. And if the society has made up their mind, and if the Bollywood has made up their mind that they're not going to give her any films, you and I can't do about anything. Even a court order cannot say that gives somebody an employment. If that was so easy, then every struggling actor would go to the court and say, "Look, I want a movie to be assigned to me. Please give me a court order." That's not how the world works. But yes, I think the right thing for her would have been to at least obtain a gag order against these media houses for, targeting her so shamelessly and saying that that she is the only person, and she has caused this and that. Look, it's I don't know till the time the trial happens, till the time the factual report are actually factually reported by the media. It's very difficult for any person, including me, to say whether she's actually the culprit or not. So we'll have to wait for fair and actual trial to happen. And I think her legal team, I don't know what they've advised her, but a gag order perhaps could have been tried. But I think today, having said that, I think it's a little too late in the day because sometimes the water has flown beneath the bridge, and I think in this case it's a little too late because she has also had a counter TV interview to put her side of the story, and I think we have what we are seeing today is a little more Americanized system of media trial on that we have normally not seen before like this happening in this country.
Yeah, so the next question is from Adarsh Jain. When the Mumbai Police Commissioner was against transferring the Sushant Singh Rajput case to the CBI, did it come in the way of free trial?
No, sir, because look, they are only trying to investigate a matter. Trial is the domain of the court, and investigation is the domain of the police under the supervision of the court, obviously. But no police, no respectable police institution would like their matter to be handed over to some other agency, whether it be CBI or any other state police, because then it's a matter of huge public embarrassment, which Maharashtra police faced in this case. If they had shown a little more promptitude and candor in their approach, I think things would have been different. But sometimes, look, Sushant Singh Rajput was a famous actor, young actor, A-grade actor, and if there is some signaling that the death was not natural but homicidal or unnatural death, then promptitude required that Maharashtra police ought to have expedited their investigation, which at least it's so transparent that they did not do, and as a result, CBI had to take charge of this matter, and so much so that even Supreme Court got involved, and then they have to give a judgment on this. So again, a lot of face saving for the state police, but it could have been avoided if they were really good with their investigation. And obviously, if something is lacking in the investigation, only then the court like Supreme Court will intervene and give the authority to some other investigating agency.
The next question is from Lalit. As to when police record statement of complaint and publish it in media.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, as to when police record statement of complaint and publish it in media.
When does police publish in India? Look,
As
they have
to
their own.
when, yeah.
So police, I think that so every agency has their own spokesperson. Sometimes you see even in the government, because they're all government bodies, they have their own spokesperson when they hold a media gathering, and the journalists are there and they ask questions and they're free to answer. But sometimes you cannot just answer everything because you also have to protect the sanctity of the whole fair trial process. If you give every information out there, then the person who is the accused is going to, perhaps go scot-free by making a defense in advance. Or if there is other person who is an actual criminal who is watching everything on the TV media, whom have actually committed the crime, will be laughing at you and saying, look, here you are conducting a media trial on somebody else, while the actual culprit who committed the crime is sitting on their sofa and watching this news channels in action. So one has to be very careful and meticulous in the approach when you give any information to anybody, especially in the public domain.
So next question is from Hina Jalan. Was the Supreme Court order of sending the case to CBI overuse of its power?
No, I don't think so. I think under Article 142 of the Constitution, they were within their power to do that. And Supreme Court, it's not the first time that it has happened that a case has been transferred to CBI, and it's a very, very respected and a seasoned court, the highest court of the country. So I don't doubt the wisdom at all in this case. I think on the contrary, what should have been done is, as I said, Maharashtra police could have been a little more prompt in the dealing with the matter.
So participants, if you have any more questions, kindly raise your hand or write on the chat box. Yeah, so there's a question from anonymous attendee. The media has leaked all the information related to the case, so that what is the credibility of the evidence?
look, again, when you say media has released all the information, and I have not seen those information because it's not in the form of a charge sheet, it's not in the form of a media report in a charge sheet. So you will have to, and whosoever this anonymous person is, I would invite you, if you're a law student or if you are even a lay person, please attend this media trial, please attend this fair trial when it happens in actual court. And you will see how the court actually functions vis-a-vis how these media houses function. There is a sea of a difference.
Right, sir. So any other questions, participants? You can raise your hand or write on the chat box. Okay, so considering there are no more questions, sir, would you like to add something to the session?
So let me just thank you to the audience for such engaging questions and answer session, I would say, because when you have good questions, then it compels a person also to give good answers, or at least try to be worthy of giving a good answer. And I hope I've been able to allay some of your misconceptions about media trial versus fair trial and how things ought to happen as opposed to how they actually happen in this country on media platforms. We still have a long way to go. I think we still need a lot of reforms and we need good laws so far as media is concerned, because media has run amok with unlimited power being given to them. There has to be some sort of checks and balances. When there are checks and balances in the judiciary, when there are checks and balances in the parliament, in legislature, I don't think why should there not be any checks and balances for the media houses or for social media platforms or for even print media. Everything has to be done in an utmost responsible manner. And I think the way and the moment we get to realize that someone is being irresponsible, we need to raise our concerns about that. And I must also thank Law Internships for giving me this platform to raise my voice on a very important issue, which I think is I would not say haunting, but which is at least in our day-to-day life, and especially in the wake of Sushant Singh Rajput's case, which has been made into a media mandate. So I think anybody who is in here, again, thank you, and thanks a lot for having me again.
So on behalf of Team Law Internships, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Jayant Bhatt sir for taking out time from his busy schedule and interacting with the young minds. It was truly an enriching session. Thank you again, sir, and also happy Teachers' Day, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I think we can end the meeting now.